Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do something not completely different, but quite different, because we have to split the stream in 2 streams. This is technically no problem, but physically I'm not able to split myself in 2 parts. So this is the reason why I'm now looking very forward to welcome my co-host, Mr. Klaus Paukowitz. Welcome. You are editor-in-chief at WEKA Industry Media, and you're also an expert in the field of machinery and manufacturing, and you are conducting the 2nd stream. So make me jealous. What's going on in your part?
Well, thank you for your kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this day, because what's happening in my side of the stream is really interesting. We will start to kick off with a discussion on one of the hottest topics at the moment, that is green production. Green production is becoming more and more important in the future, and it is more and more important for our future. So Konrad Eckel, who is going to host this discussion, he's Director for Sustainability at Advantage Austria. He has 3 experts in certain fields of technology at his hand, and he will discuss those technologies. After that, we'll have 3 sessions, 3 blocks, which deal with 3 really important technologies. One of them is connectivity. The second one is additive manufacturing. And then we'll finish with, of course, automation, which is the core of manufacturing processes in the future. So that's my part. What's on your side?
Well, maybe we should mention this is not a battle between streams, okay? This is only because we have so many interesting topics that we wanted to give our audience the possibility to choose among all these interesting themes. And we will have short breaks between every block so that you will always be able to switch to your interests. What's happening on my side? Well, we have the fabulous Mr. Eric Savoy. He's the Director of Industry, Machinery and Materials Department at Advantage Austria. And he's also conducting a panel with 3 experts, and they will talk about supply chain resilience. Also a very important topic, as we now learned in the COVID-19 crisis, that if supply chains fail, it's rather difficult to keep up our industrial processes. And we also have 3 blocks of fields of innovation. On my side, we will deal with AR and VR, with AI and the big data theme. Maybe we should also tell our audience there is no need to rush. We now make a short break so that you can choose which stream you want to do.
Yes, and you have started to make me a little jealous. It sounds very interesting, but I can't split myself either. So I'll stick with my side of the ale. So I'm looking forward seeing you there. It's not a battle, but sort of it is.
You see, it's not a battle. It starts a little bit like a cabaret show. You will never know who is going to conduct what. No, honestly, take a short break, make your decision which stream you are going to follow, and we meet up again in a couple of more minutes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our panel on supply chain resilience. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us our supply chains are vulnerable. As companies and economies work towards recovery, supply chain experts have a key role for our future economic success. So I'm very happy to present you our guests, 3 top supply chain experts. First, Wolfgang Sänger-Weiss. He is CEO of Gebrüder Weiss, with over 7,000 employees, 150 company-owned locations, and a turnover of 1.7 billion euros in 2019. Gebrüder Weiss ranks among the leading transport and logistics companies in Europe. Welcome.
Thank you.
Lisa Smith. She's co-founder and managing director of Prewave. Prewave was founded 2017 as an innovative spin-off from the Technical University in Vienna, and it offers an AI-based supply chain risk intelligence platform. And last but not least, Christian Haring. He's president of BMÖ, which is representing Austrian purchasing and supply chain managers. Mr. Haring is the former director, global supply chain management of AVL. AVL is the world's largest independent company for the development, simulation, and testing of powertrain systems. So my first question goes to Christian. What are the learnings from the COVID-19 sparked supply chain disruptions?
Thanks, Eric, having me here. Now, that's not the first crisis which we have to handle. I think we are all formed by the crisis of the financial year 2008, which was quite heavy for us, but also other earthquakes, Fukushima, and so on. So risks are always here. Yeah, there is no business without risks. But I think we have additionally learned that we have to spend more time and resources on risk management. I think here e-commerce is a very good approach to get the things handled in a proper form, in an efficient form. We cannot add human resources endless to our organization, so we have to be efficient. And I think e-commerce, like Lisa is presenting here today, is a very important tool for companies to evaluate risks in time and to react or act very quickly. Because time is then crucial if something is happening. Our factories can't wait for supplies, they're standing still. We are embedded in a range of direct suppliers and service providers which are enabling our business. So I think a strong supply chain is marked by a strong partnership with suppliers and service providers. If they're working good together and if they see the risks in time, I think a lot of damage can be avoided.
Thank you, Christian. Next question to Lisa. How can technology help to make supply chains more resilient?
Yes, so thanks for having me as well. And so there are endless opportunities for digitalization technology to make supply chains better, but we see actually three key areas. It really starts with a simple question like, what is my supply chain? When we as an AI startup busy in the supply chain intelligence space work with manufacturers out there, then we identify that they oftentimes don't know their supply chain beyond the first tier. And that oftentimes when it's about raw materials or the components further back in the supply chain, it's still quite blurry. And I think this is the first area where technology can help. It's certainly not only technology and digitalization, but it's a part of it that can make supply chain mapping better. Second area that we see is then once you know what your supply chain is the question what happens in my supply chain. And this is exactly what Christian mentioned. It's very important to know, to be aware of the risks that are currently basically surrounding the suppliers, but also the transportation nodes. And this is where we as a startup, with Prewave, are working in this field. Maybe just as an example, so how can technology help here? We developed an AI technology that analyzes high volumes of data, which are published all around the world every second, from news data or also social media data, more than 50 languages. And this data can help us to understand what is happening in supply chains, to know when there's a fire in a warehouse, if there's a labor strike at the seaport. And it really helps us to understand these risks more quickly and sometimes even before they actually happen. Many risks have actually early signals, they present early signals that we can sense. And that can help to better know what is happening in the supply chain. And last but not least, of course, then the next question is, what shall we do? Now we know that there is a problem. So what can be done? And here it's, of course, about assessing the impact of a certain risk. So how does this affect my supply chain? And here technology can help to a certain extent, but in any case, there's a lot of collaboration needed to solve these issues and to find solutions. And this is where digitalization can help to basically streamline the communication between suppliers and customers. And this is where we see a huge potential as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Wolfram, you have many customers. What is your advice to those to our audience from the experience of your customers?
So if you look at supply chain resilience, we come from a time where we had a good economic development, so companies tended to take too much risk. And now there was a disruption, and if you look at the supply chain, you can actually split it in two parts, I'd say. One is really the material supply. So, if they were looking only to one supplier, single sourcing, this is one risk where we saw a lot of problems coming from, because the problem was not so much in the logistic chain, but rather in in companies that were closed and could not deliver. So if you depended too much on one supplier, and it didn't depend, if it was far away or close, this is something we really saw in this matter. But if you look at the logistic chain, first of all, you have to well understand your own processes. So, to make sure you don't need too much emergency deliveries, everything is well planned and looked in advance. Then you can secure space. At the moment when space is scarce, you have to make sure you can secure space and be also willing to pay for securing space. And then you have, of course, to get more transparency. And this is also where technology comes in, to have a transparency through your process and to know in advance when there is a problem coming. And last but not least, you need a good partner that understands your processes and goes that way together with you.
Thank you, Wolfram. Lisa, how can companies establish the right risk culture to be able to prevent and react to supply chain disruptions?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we think an important point is to don't see risk management as a reactive matter, let's say, but more as a proactive, but really to develop a proactive approach towards risk management. So that means not waiting until you've basically faced the risk and then react, but really actively already sensing risks, using the data that is available out there to understand what is happening, but also to collaborate with suppliers to understand what is their current production status. And there's an example from the last COVID, from the first COVID wave last year. One of our clients, the factory was completely in lockdown, but it was only the supply chain management department which was still working, just phoning all their suppliers, and these were more than several hundreds, just to understand what is the production status. But we think that with digitalization technology, this can be even improved, really, to turn this around. And we worked with this client to develop a system where their suppliers proactively basically told them their status, that yes, there is a regional lockdown in our area, but we have a special permit. We are still producing. And we worked with this client to create the first real-time map of the entire supply chain, which shows the real-time status. And we think that this is an important part, really proactively approaching the topic, trying to collect data about the status of the supply chain, and then being quicker than others, of course, to react to the risks that are identified.
Thank you, Lisa. Wolfram mentioned dual sourcing as an option. What can you elaborate to this topic?
Dual sourcing, multiple sourcing is sure always a question for the industry. It depends very much in which business you are in. In project industry, project business, dual or multiple sourcing is in most cases not possible. So you have one partner in the projects. For serial production, it's different. If you have the right amount of quantity in production, you can afford to have 2 or 3 suppliers. I think we have to rework our supply strategies in the coming weeks and months to see really how we can improve our position with our suppliers. What Lisa has mentioned, if you have, for example, 3,000 suppliers today, you only see your first-tier suppliers. You don't see the whole map, so second, third-tier suppliers until to the raw material. And that makes it very difficult, not only for risk, but also for compliance questions, legal, social compliance, green compliance. These are all tasks which we have to fulfill. And in most of the questions, we have to go not only to the first-tier supplier, also the second and third-tier supplier. And that's quite a task. For example, for 3,000 suppliers, you can imagine that takes some time. And here, e-procurement and e-offices tools can help us to manage this task. I think there will be also some more development on the risk side and from the risk information. For me, it's to see the risk in time. I compare this with driving a car, and you see there's something on the street. If you see it in time, you can react and you can avoid perhaps any damage, or you reduce the damage to a minimum. If I don't see the risk coming, I'm bumping into the wall. Yeah? And especially here, I'm expecting huge improvements in the future to see the risks in the market, to take advanced actions, and to avoid any disruptions of the supply chain. A little bit more trickier, it's the automotive industry where you have to get everything in just in time. Yeah. And if the factory stands still and there's a lot of material on the way, where to go? Yeah. For an example, semiconductors and automotive industry, what we have seen last year in March, automotive industry was very quick to reduce the quantities for semiconductors. Now, we know that the cycle for electronic components is a different one in automotive than it is in consumer electronics. Yeah, consumer electronics is much quicker, so the cycle is here 6 to 12 months. Automotive industries is using the components much longer. Now, what happened? They've reduced, they've cancelled orders. Now they are fighting to get the products in. Because semiconductor industry is only delivering approximately 10% into the automotive market. So they are not waiting. And now starting old lines, for example, for older components, it's costly for them. So what I'm expecting here is higher prices during the next months, perhaps even next 1-2 years. Then I hope it will come slightly back. But perhaps from the logistics side, you can give us a little bit a better input, what you're expecting in the next 6 months or 12 months.
Yes, Wolfram, what do you expect?
I mean, if you look at the supply chain, especially the overseas supply chain, there is a lack of capacity, especially in sea freight and in air freight. Air freight because a lot of transport in the belly freight, and sea freight because it was just reduced the number of ships that is going. And we're used to have an equilibrium in the form that the supply chain is working, the overseas supply chain. You don't have the containers where you need them, and the industry has adapted to the flow of merchandise, of goods. And it's going to take a while. We hope that through Chinese New Year now, it might calm down and come back to kind of an equilibrium status. But it will take much longer to come back to a situation where the processes work as we are used for them to work before. That when you order, then you also get it booked on the ship, you have booked it on and so on. So what we see at the moment is that also, you know, from the harbor to the company and back to the harbor, and all the transit time is much longer than it has been before, because transshipment points are not working, harbors are not working at full capacity. So the whole chain is kind of lacking, and it's going to take a little while. I'd say at least 6 months for it to come back in order to have enough capacity to produce the merchandise that is waiting out there. And it has also a little changed, you know, which countries are exporting. China had a much better year than Europe, so there is a lot more demand for exports in China than there is in Europe or the US at the moment. So not too good, short answers from this side.
So you expect higher prices on the short term notice?
No, I mean, we already have much higher prices. Okay. And in order to secure space, you have to be willing to pay these prices if this is important for you. And in addition, you know, the prices, they also reflect what there is a cost of service. And probably the prices in the past were also too low.
Yes, Wolfram. I also have a question considering the structures of the enterprises. Do you think, are there special structures that help to improve supply chain resilience? Are there any organizational structures helping this resilience?
You know, what we see is that usually logistic is purchased by the purchasing department, and they are incentivized by low cost. So risk is not really on their radar. So they try to get the cheapest prices and the easiest solution in the logistic chain. So now when you see that the chains are failing, you all of a sudden see the real cost of this. So, you mentioned if production is not working, if you miss out on sales, these costs of the supply chain are much higher than these costs really for the logistics when it is purchased. So my advice would be to have more production people, more salespeople being part of the decision on the supply chain, on the logistics chain, and not only have it viewed from the cheapest price and the price perspective, as purchasing is incentivized. And you also need a partner who, in times of crisis, probably has other options. So what we have also seen now is that pure digital formats, digital forwarders, did not succeed well, or were actually sometimes a disaster, because if the regular way is not working and you don't have expertise, then there is no plan B to it. So I think it's extremely important to have a solid partner that works with you. And in order to better understand what the real needs of a company are, you should have a broader decision panel on supply chain rather than delegating it to purchasing department.
Thank you. This brings me to Christian. As a representative of purchasing managers and supply chain managers alike, do you agree with the position of Wolfram?
Basically, I agreed with. It's not only for purchasing and supply chain managers to get the material in time and so on. That's a key, of course, but it's much more. Our suppliers are providing us not only with parts, they're also providing us with technologies. And as we have in every industry so many different technologies, no company in the world can handle every technology anymore. Yeah. So you need strong partners who are cooperating already in a development phase or a pre-development phase to get the product in time to the right price on the market. So what we are doing here is we go for the total cost of ownership principle. That means we are not only calculating the purchasing price and the logistic price, we are also calculating financial costs. We are calculating storage costs, warehouse costs, and so on. So the price for sure is important, but it's only one factor out of our approach. The cheapest price is not helping us if quality is not okay. Yeah. So this must fit. And normally, we are going with suppliers for many, many years because we are really taking care in the supplier selection and evaluation process to find the right suppliers. As industry, we need the best suppliers worldwide and also service providers who help us to making our business. And here we say price is important, no question of it, but it's a part of it. Yeah. At the end of the day, we are charged, is the product here? Is it in the right quality? Is it in the right price? Is it not blocking my total warehouse because I've bought too much? Yeah. And of course, also looking, is the supplier strong enough to survive crisis like we have it in the moment? Yeah. And here I think we will see in the next 6 to 12 months which damage really has been done to the industry through the pandemic. I think several suppliers will be kicked out of business because they do not have the financial stronghold to cover all these costs which are occurring right now. And it's hard if you run a factory 7 days a week, 24 hours, you cannot catch up anymore. So what we have lost in the past is lost. We have to think about that. But coming back to my example before with the semiconductor business, I have read yesterday in the Financial Times, around 1 million cars production in Europe is in danger for this year because of lack of semiconductors. Yeah? And 1 million cars is a lot. So my question is also how to react on that. I think I always said panic is not a good advisor. Yeah. If something like this is happening, we should think, how do we come back to a normal stage? Can our supply chains really handle that, or do we jump in and perhaps buy something on stock to be prepared if the market is coming back? The disturbances in the moment are coming from the closed markets. Is it trading? Is it industry? People are buying in the moment foods and clothes and home appliances. Yeah, but some other sectors are completely down. And here I think we have to differentiate in which business we are in.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, the time is running out. One very short questions to all of you, starting with Wolfram. In a nutshell, how will supply chains evolve in the post-COVID era, in your opinion?
This is the big question. Is there going to be a big change to it? I believe not too much. As long as price is important, supplying from Asia will still be extremely important. So what we see that there is not such a strong movement in nearshoring. What we see a lot more is that actually e-commerce triggers the way supply chains change, because you need the products in place available for the end customer. So this brings in more warehouses, more storage closer to the end customers. So in the end, I believe not so big changes to the supply chain. More important is having the right partner and looking more also to risk than only to price when it is about logistic chain.
Thank you, Wolfram. Yes, we talked about risk. What is your opinion, Lisa, for the future of supply chains?
Yes. So what we see when we talk to our clients is, the two trends actually. So digitalization, obviously, also to invest more into basically making the whole risk life cycle more digital, like assessing risks when you work with new suppliers, identifying risk, monitoring, but also acting upon those risks, investing into better collaboration tools there. And the other one is not directly related to COVID, but we also see a lot of efforts into the direction of sustainability. Also taking more care not only on disruption risks, but also sustainability risks. And there are movements around, like in Germany, the new supply chain law is now discussed that actually support this trend as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, so perhaps to summarize.
I totally agree. E-commerce, I think, is one of the tools which we have to use much more in the future. And I think here is coming much more service also in the future for us as companies to handle our business. That's on one side. The other side is sourcing decisions perhaps may change slightly. Also, I can imagine insourcing through new technologies like 3D printing, where companies are quicker in the development and innovation process. And I think this will drive us. I think the next risk is around the corner. It's every 5 or 6 years, something like that is coming. But I think we are well equipped, and we have to use our tools and our strong partnerships to be successful in the future.
So thank you very much. Time is already running out. Thank you for being here. I think it was a very interesting discussion, which unfortunately has to end now because we have a tight program. But yes, I want to invite you, dear participants and dear audience, to join in the afternoon. In the afternoon, there are the one-to-one business meetings. There you can meet new customers, new business partners, and probably you will also have the possibility to talk with our guests or their employees. So be with us in the afternoon, and thank you for watching this panel.